Hi, welcome to the show. Today we're going to talk about a subject that's very important to the people of Carlton, but not just to the people of Carlton, to the whole county, and you're going to find out why. I have with me today Shirley Ward-Mullen of the Carlton City Council and liaison to the Carlton Pool Restoration Project, and I have with me the chair of that project, Pat Swanick. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, having us.
I just love that pool in Carlton. When I drive by in the summer and see the kids playing there, it's just warms my heart. What a great slice of Americana. And evidently, people come from all over the county to do that.
Well, all over the county and actually outside the county. Many tourists and visitors. It's open to everybody.
Yeah, it's a beautiful park and a beautiful pool. Now, the pool's great, but there's a problem. Tell us about that, Shirley.
Well, the problem was that the pool house, which was built in 1935, had, over time and the 80 years of use, has fallen into disrepair. And really, it was this last year pretty much on its last legs. And that's why we decided, or the council decided, that we needed to get a bond measure out there and build a new pool house.
Now, let's just back up a little bit. How did you come to Carlton? How did you come to have this passion for the pool? You've been there your whole lives, right? You were born there. You grew up. No. No? Okay.
No, not at all.
Pat, how did you come to Carlton?
I'm a retiree. I've been in Carlton permanently for about 3 years. We really liked the Pacific Northwest, and when we decided to retire, we chose Oregon, and we landed in Carlton. We found that the pool is really a valuable community resource. And while my wife and I don't have any children that use it, we still think it's a very valuable asset that should be preserved. So that's how I got to be committed to the project.
Well, let's back up. So you worked most of your life in banking. Or
That's
your
correct.
Your career was in banking, and where was that mostly?
Well, it was mostly in Philadelphia and in Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay, and then you spent some time in Texas.
Spent some time in Texas and ran a company in Texas, and then we purchased property out here, and we were going to split our time between Austin and Carlton. But we found ourselves spending more and more time out here, so we decided to make this our permanent base.
So I'm going to say you love this place.
That's true.
Okay.
That is true.
Out of all those places you saw and lived, you chose to
That's exactly right.
retire in
Yeah,
Carlton.
that's exactly right.
I think that's a wise move.
Well, thank you.
Now, how about you, Shirley? You're
And I'm also retired, and my husband and I are from San Francisco, and we had lived there for 22 years before moving to Carlton.
San Francisco to Carlton.
Yeah, downtown San Francisco to Carlton. It's like night and day. But we had been visiting Carlton since probably the mid-90s. I have several relatives that live in the Carlton area. And in 2004, we just fell in love, had an epiphany that that we wanted to move here, and we bought a property, and then in 2012 moved here permanently after we both retired.
Now, when you got here, there had been a bond measure to restore the pool house that had failed, right?
Right, in November of 2014.
Okay, and then you ran for the city council.
And during that election, I ran for city council and was elected. And in January, about a couple of weeks after I was sworn in, I was asked by the mayor to put together a citizen advisory committee to go back and look at, at the pool, why the bond measure failed the last time, how can we get it to pass this time. So I formed a citizen advisory committee and asked Pat to join that committee, and I knew because of his, great background that I wanted him to be chair of that committee.
Now, Pat didn't know that at the time.
Now, congratulations. I mean, we're jumping ahead here a little bit, but you took on a large unknown and shouldered this responsibility. And we're going to hear the story of how that went. And, okay, great.
Right, yeah.
Well, I just want to say, first of all, thank you. I'm impressed. Kudos.
Yeah, well, I remember the day, talking to the city manager about all of the, different aspects of what had to be done. And it was kind of a bit daunting, but it was exciting at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so tell us about the process. Here you're asked to put this Citizens Advisory Committee together. You talked to Pat. He got on. How many are there?
We started out with about 22 folks, and we were very excited that the first meeting we had, that literally everyone showed up. And I purposely put together that size of a group because you just know over time that there's a certain amount of attrition. So I think by the time a year later now, we're sort of down to about 12 to 15 active participants on the committee.
Now, they're gathered around this project because they have some history in town. They've seen this pool house there, many of them, for their whole lives. Is that right?
That's right.
When was that pool house built?
In 1935. But I have to say, which
That's a
was
lot
really
older than me.
exciting, is so I started doing some review of the history, that the discussion of why not a pool in Carlton began in 1919 with the Carlton Civic Improvement Association. It was an association of women at the time, and they actively worked on that from 1919 through to 1935, when they also did a bond measure. And then the WPA, it was during the Depression, it was an infrastructure project.
Really?
So they donated over 4,200 hours to build the pool house and the pool.
And that's the history of that. Now, the pool's been redone
Yeah, I think it was
since
like
then.
in the
In
late
the early
90s.
90s, yeah, in the early 90s, the pool's been redone, but the pool house, continued to deteriorate with heavy use.
Was built by the Works Progress Administration.
Yeah.
And you can't have a community pool without a pool house with the restroom and sanitation facilities, changing facilities.
That's
by
code law,
statute or-
has to be.
yeah,
You can't
has
just
to
level
be.
it and
So,
say, here's the pool,
yeah,
jump
some
in.
people say, well, why don't
Okay.
you just knock the pool house down and just have a pool?
Not
You can't do that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so to keep the pool, you had to save the pool house because the pool house
That's
was
correct.
falling down and was not able to be, kept to code or? just-
Well, both. Yeah, I mean, it really was not able to be restored in its current condition. It wasn't seismic, taken care of from a seismic standpoint. Wasn't ADA compliant. There's a lot of issues associated with it.
Okay, so it had to be done. And so, okay, there's 15, 20 of you, 15 have come down to 15, 12, 15 of you now.
Right. So,
That-
so it started out getting together, going over the original bond measure, which the original bond went out for, it was like 1.3 million, and that
Okay.
failed. So the first thing we looked at is what can we do to try to reduce the cost of the price of the bond?
Yeah.
And we ultimately got it down to $975,000. Maybe Pat, you could talk a little bit about.
Yeah, basically what we looked at was the cost of the project. We were able to pare off a little bit of the expense of the project, but not much, because you really needed the facility the way it was designed, and you could chip away at some of the expense, but really it was $1.3 million, $1.4 million project at the end of the day. So the question was how to pay for it. So the bond measure translates directly into your property tax increase for a Carlton property owner. We got that down to $975 with the understanding that we would have other multiple sources of funding to make up the difference. Now, some of those sources are coming from the city, from different coffers that the city has.
Okay.
Other funds are coming from grant applications, which we have applied for. And then the final piece was private donations, which we have a $50,000 private donation campaign underway right now, and we're already 75% of the way in funding that. So we're quite optimistic that the private donation campaign is going to meet its goal, probably exceed it. And then we've heard favorable comments so far on the grant applications. So basically, it's a multi-source funding strategy. The bond measure covers 2/3 of the cost of the facility. The other third comes from these other sources.
And the bond measure passed?
Yeah, the bond measure
So-
passed in May.
Convincingly
Yeah,
passed.
2-1.
Yeah.
2-1, okay, that sounds great.
Yeah.
And then by rearranging the financing like you've talked about, it was what the community was willing to put onto their property taxes.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
One
all
of
right.
the things we also did before the election was we had a town hall meeting and invited the citizens of the community to come, and we talked about the project, and we listened to questions, concerns of the community, and so I think that went a long way to helping us to pass the measure.
Yeah, one of the issues with the first bond measure that failed was that there was a lot of misinformation, and the communication strategy wasn't very good.
Okay.
So a lot of the residents thought that their taxes were going up hundreds and hundreds of dollars if this bond measure passed. So it got defeated. The fact of the matter is, when it passed in May, the average home in Carlton property tax impact is about $6 a month.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's not significant.
Well, you brought some pictures with you.
Mm-hmm.
I think we better get to those. We only have about 4 minutes left, so we're going to go through these pictures. Paul, could you show us that? There's one, number one. Talk to
Okay,
us
so
about
that's
what's
the
there.
original pool house, built in 1935, 80-plus years old. Let's go to the next picture. That's just another picture of the old pool house, which has now been demolished about 2 months ago. Let's go to the next one. That's part of the demolition. You can see the old pool house pretty much disappeared. It didn't take long to knock it down, given the condition it was in.
It was made out of cinder block?
Pretty much cinder block, yeah, cinder block and cement. And then the next picture, I think, is another demolition shot there.
Now I see Visqueen, they're trying to keep the bricks out of the pool.
That's
right?
true. That's a pretty good idea. And then I think the last picture is a graphic of the new pool house. And actually the orientation of this new building is it's facing south onto Grant Street, where the old pool house was actually in the upper right corner of that graphic. So the facility is actually facing out on Grant Street now.
Let's leave that up there, Paul. So the old pool house was where that dark patch of grass is on
That's
the
correct.
long
Right.
side of the pool, and that's where we saw it being knocked down.
Yeah, and actually that patch of grass now is going to be a very nice open green space for bathers, pool visitors to spread out a towel.
Oh, it's
bring
inside the
family.
fence, I see.
It is inside the fence. Now that we didn't have that space before because the building was there.
Yeah.
So it really is quite an enhancement.
Now I see three kind of wings of I see the right, in the middle, and the left roofs of the pool house. Is there solar panels?
There are solar panels there. My understanding is that a certain percentage of the construction cost, again by statute, has to be solar. Has to be used for solar purposes. I don't know all the details, but I recall that from the architect.
So what's under the roofs there? Tell us, is there a lobby there in the middle?
Well, so there's a lobby in the middle when you come in. That would be where the reception desk is. And then on either side are, I believe, the locker rooms and changing rooms and restroom sanitary facilities. And then it opens out in the back to the pool itself.
Well, that's beautiful.
And all the pumps and mechanical, electrical materials are actually underneath the structure, where before there was a separate pump house on Grant Street.
So where is it now?
Well, it's very much under construction.
So you're actually, the forms are being put up?
Oh, sure,
Yes.
yeah. The target date is to have a grand opening in June, in mid-June for the next pool season.
Is that the normal season opens in June?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's scheduled to open on the opening day that happens every year in the middle of June.
Now, there's some ongoing project. You were mentioning that there's a fundraising project to finish, and you're 75% there.
That's correct.
I think I went online and donated a
Yes.
small donation.
Yep,
because
we are accepting donations in the mail, by credit card, and through the GoFundMe site. It's gofundme.com/Carlton Community. And that website actually has a tally of all of the money that's been contributed so far, whether it came through the website or not.
Yeah.
We have a way of reporting everything.
So if
We're
you wanna
selling hats and shirts, that have been donated, and we've raised money that way. We have some restaurants that are doing special programs over the next few months to donate a portion of their proceeds. And frankly, the companies and individuals, not only in Yamhill County but beyond, have been very generous.
Yeah, that's what I understand from Shirley, that it's not the local people who are going to pay for it with their taxes, and this is
Exactly.
kind of reaching out to the rest of the county and the area to give them a chance to.
Yeah, I think
be part of it.
I think over 70% of the donations have come from individuals or businesses outside of Carlton.
Who's going to be the first to jump in the pool?
I think Shirley will.
All right. Are you up for that?
No, maybe.
I'll be there with the camera. We'll have a show there at the pool for the grand
great.
opening. June, do you have a day? June?
I think the city might have a day. I don't know the exact
It's
date.
like June 16th or 15th.
Okay.
So we'll have a ribbon cutting ceremony, and it'll be quite exciting.
Well, Shirley, again, congratulations. The mayor came to you and said, see if you can fix this. And you did.
Thank you.
Marvelous.
Happy to
Thank
do
you for
it.
joining up and
Yep.
bringing that banker's knowledge and how to divide out that money into different places. and
Well,
getting
thank
it
you.
done.
No, it's been a fun project, and we're not done yet, but we're getting close, and looking forward to June.
Well, thanks for being here today and telling us about it.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.